happy for me to just start? Hi.
Hi.
It's a good opportunity for me to thank you for your hospitality over the last couple of days and anticipating similarly the half day that I have with you tomorrow. It's been a delight to return to your school, to reconnect with some of you and to meet others for the first time. And I also wanted just to say a really big thank you to Karina for her amazing organisation of the day and corresponding with me at an incredibly busy time at the beginning of the year, but she's just amazing. And picked her up from the airport, just got a little snack pack ready, you know, just really, not everyone looks after me that well. So a big thank you very much. It does make a difference, let me tell you. We just have a short time this afternoon, but hopefully an opportunity for us all to think a little more about what it means to use an inquiry-based approach, whether you teach 3-year-olds, whether you are responsible for PE or languages, or whether it's math time or whether you're running a writing workshop. We can bring an inquiry stance to all that we do. One of the things I mentioned last time I was here, and I know many of you are aware of, but we've seen a real evolution in inquiry over the last few years, even within the context of the PYP, understanding that inquiry is not something that just happens when it's unit time. The inquiry is an approach, it's a stance, it's a disposition, it's a pedagogy that we can use across the day. So it is problematic that we call them units of inquiry, isn't it? In a sense, it suggests that that's when you do an inquiry. Who knows, maybe that will gradually shift and change over time. But I've probably spent as much, if not more time, talking with many of you about inquiry in contexts other than the units, as I have talking about inquiry within your unit. So I hope that message is coming across loud and clear. I want to explore that a little more this afternoon, but before I go any further, I have a challenge for you. This is not always the most productive learning time, is it? Straight after, at the end of the tired, long day. So I'd like you just to take a moment to try and identify how you're feeling right now as you settle in to the afternoon. What would be, if you had to choose one word to describe how you're feeling right now, and there are no right answers and there are no wrong answers, what would your word be? And there's just a little bit of inspiration for you here. But how would you describe your feeling? You have the compulsory post-it notes on your table and markers. All I want you to do is write that one word down on a post-it with a marker. How are you feeling?
No, sorry. So, Joules, full of energy, right? That's your word.
Yeah, like a I was going to say frita. I'm going to say cheese, not surprising.
Okay. Have you written it down? So we've been talking a little about this today. So I want you just to take a moment now and just to hold up your words so that others around your table can see it, and so can I. Oh, these are great words. Fried, frazzled, wobbly, dazed, extended, dehydrated. Get yourself some water.
Yeah, exactly.
Whoa. I'm just going to say say, I'm pretty impressed with the quality of the words here. This is beautiful. So I have another question for you. So there's your word. That's right now, that's who you are. And even that little moment for me is a little formative moment, isn't it? It's like, okay, right, here's where they're at. Okay, I need to go easy here, or that's useful information for me. So let's take this a little bit deeper. When you think about that feeling that you've just identified, would you consider it to be more of a blocker or a driver for your learning this afternoon? We're going to be learning together between now and, is it going to get in the way maybe, or could it actually push your learning forward? Is it going to shut the gate or open the gate? Tell each other what you think. Blocker, driver.
Shut the gate now, maybe. Yeah. I'm getting the picture shutters. Are you like the shutters here?
We have
Thanks everyone. I'm going to stop you there. For those of you that identified that your current feeling or your emotional state at the moment has potential to block your learning this afternoon, and it's probably several of you, feel rest assured that you've actually already done something about it a little. Just by noticing it, by naming it, actually, this is where I'm at. I am feeling like this at the moment, and that could get in the way. An interesting question to ask kids when we do this is, if you're feeling something that gets in the way of that could get in the way of your learning, because we know your emotions are the gateway, right? That if you're not dealing with the emotional state first, you can forget everything else. That's the gate. So if you've got one that you think this is potentially a blocker, what could you do to shift the block a little? Is there anything you could do about it? If you've identified an emotion that could get in the way of learning, what do you do about that so that maybe you're feeling like your learning is going to be driven more than blocked? Again, just take a moment. If you're one of those people, can you do anything about it or not? Talk to each other.
Yourself a time limit. A good laugh.
I'm doing this so quickly. It's partly intentional for you as adult learners, but it's also modelling one of the most critical elements of our Inquire classrooms, and I would have said this last time to those of you that worked with me last time, that when we think of using an inquiry-based approach, it's not just helping kids inquire into the world around them and into how to be a great writer or whatever it might be. It's also helping them inquire into themselves, right? It's about how do you build a sense of yourself as a capable learner with agency, with a sense of confidence in yourself as a learner. And part of that is helping kids stay in contact with themselves and their emotions through the day, first thing in the morning, and so on. The big buzzword around the traps at the moment is agency, is giving kids what Peter Johnson calls a strong sense of agency, a belief in themselves as capable learners. It connects really strongly to Carol Dweck's growth mindset work. Many of you would have read, yes? Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's that same concept, and I think Inquire is such a beautiful approach to build learner agency. One of the things we want are kids that know that they can manage themselves, they can regulate themselves, they can have some control over their learning, they can make great choices. I love using this. Have you seen this? I might have shown it to some of you last time, I can't remember. But this is a beautiful example, kind of a metaphor for making choices, even about your emotional state.
It used to be a cat.
Oh, that
And
sounds
Jay
not
this
very
thing. I'd be a loop tool.
I don't like that sound, Jessica. What do I do? It's coming in and out. I'm Wi-Fiing.
Maybe this in
I'll try it one more time.
If you look it
It's a
up,
Pro
if you
Eye.
look it up just on the on the Pro Eyes, if you're not mirroring it or if you're not projecting it, then it would be better.
Oh, except it's going to take.
Or is the volume all the way up on
Yeah.
the device?
On the device it is.
Yeah.
It was. It's just like it was coming in and out of signal.
only
I'll
does-
try it one more time. Try it on this. Let's just see.
Careful, that could.
Wow, it's going to blow out. That'll wake you up. You're tired. Should we see what happens? We'll give it one more go.
I don't have a lot of luck with projecting.
Give it one more go.
either. Well, it's good for.
I used to be a cat. And Jay the same.
Annoy me.
I'd be a loop tool.
For homework, hop onto YouTube and look up Be More Dog. Who's seen it? You know it? Yeah. So I used to be a cat, you know, I was aloof, I was this, I was that, and then I decided, why be so cat? Why not be more dog? And it's this gorgeous flip where the cat actually starts behaving like a dog. It's very funny, very cute, and kids love it. And it often leads then to conversations about, can you actually change how you are? If you're tired, grumpy, frazzled, overwhelmed, can you do something to move from that state to a different state? Or are you just the way that you are? I had a beautiful conversation with some grade 2 children in Hong Kong after I showed them this, and we did this exact activity. And one little boy was saying, I'm just feeling, I can't remember the word he used, but it was that kind of frazzle idea. And then others were giving him advice and saying, you can change that. You don't have to stay like that. What I do is I do this, I just sing a song, and then I just calm down, and then it's like I'm a different person. So it's just a little technique, even just this idea of the word gallery, how you're feeling right now, either saying it or writing it down, or using, I think last time I worked with you, I showed you the use of animals as a way to identify particular dispositions and feelings. Anything that gets the kids to think about, where am I right now? And am I ready to learn? And what do I need to do to help me be ready to learn? Of course, part of that's our responsibility too, by noticing where they're at and responding accordingly. Just take a moment. What does this connect with in terms of what you've done with your kids? Some of you might be doing some mindfulness work with them. Some of you might do a morning reflection. Perhaps this is what you focus on in circle time. Just have a quick chat with each other. What does this connect for you and in your own practice? I'll get back onto my PowerPoint and say goodbye to my really cute thing. I'm going to interrupt your conversations. I know that was brief. I can't ever do a workshop around inquiry learning without dipping into this whole area of self-regulation. In terms of what we know makes a really big difference to the quality of learning, one thing that is absolutely unequivocal, all the research studies show it time and time again, giving kids, using that metacognitive strategies that get kids noticing, thinking about. In very early years, we're doing the noticing and naming, but as they're getting older, really getting them to notice what it is they are doing and being as learners makes a really positive difference to learning. So inquiring into yourself as a learner, regularly reflecting on how, not just what, is a key to building self-regulation and independence, which is obviously what we're all trying to grow in our learners. A couple of very quick examples. Some I've pulled in just based on conversations I've had over the last couple of days. So this is with 5-year-olds. It's something that Lisa does at the beginning of her play-based discovery time, and she has just a very simple wheel. Here she has one for collaboration, one for thinking, one for research, one for self-management, and one for the other ones that I've... Thank you. Although that is social skills, technically. So this is not a PYP score. What did I miss out? Thinking, communication, self-management, research, collaboration. The 5 TD skills in PYP. learning assets in other places. So this is her social or collaboration skills one, and she's just identified 4 key things. And at the beginning of her discovery time sessions, she was working on collaboration at that time, she identifies with the children, what one will we try and notice? What do we try and remember to do? What will we try and notice? And we're going to be targeting that and looking for it and reflecting on it during and at the end of the session. This is with year 6 students. So this is actually a PYP school, and it was their first inquiry actually was into learning to learn. What does it mean to be a great learner? And these were some of the behaviours that they settled on as being really important for learning, and then each week the children would sign up to the one that they were going to try and work on that week. So it was just a different way of goal setting and helping regulate their thinking about themselves. Anything we do that is about reflecting on learning, powerful for self-regulation. I'm going to come back to that one. All right, so that's just literally just dipping back into the land of thinking about learning and getting kids to self-regulate. So what I want to move to now is the conversation we've been having a lot over the week. Like, what teaching practices, if we're using an inquiry-based approach, what are the teaching practices that we're using, and what aren't we doing? What do we associate with high-quality inquiry, and what's not high-quality inquiry? So I'm going to tune into your thinking first up. And you have some pipe cleaners. I'm going to find some more because there are more of you than I was expecting. So I'm going to put some pipe cleaners around the place. And your challenge is to think about this idea of inquiry, inquiry as a teaching approach, and what that means to you. And use the pipe cleaner to create a symbol or a shape or a representation. Oh no, I'm asking you to do something really higher order and creative at the tired end of the day. But go with me on this. Just anything that comes to mind that you think, yeah, when I think about teaching through inquiry, this is what comes to mind. How could I represent that with one pipe cleaner? Especially when I say that you can't use a question mark. You can't create a question mark, but you can do anything else you like to represent this idea. I'm going to dig out some more for you. So you just get one each. Time has come. Here's what we're going to do. Had enough time, don't agonise over it too much. Just kind of top of the head. When I think about teaching this way, here's the idea that comes to mind. This is how I would represent it. In a moment, let's actually, on your feet. Yeah. Get on your feet. And if you could just find someone in the room today that A, isn't at your table, and B, that you haven't spoken to today. You haven't connected with this person today. They're not at your table, you haven't spoken to them today. Team up, share with each other why you created what you created, and see if you find a connection. Do you have some common thinking? You may not, but if you do, notice it. All right, find someone not at your table and you haven't spoken to them.
Hi.
Hey.
How are you doing?
Can I ask you to take your seats again, and we'll just see if we've got some
Disconnect.
Who made a connection? Anyone make a connection between what they had and their partner had?
Yeah.
That's a common thinking. Let's hear it. What? So someone want to just share? Yep, I made a connection with so and so.
I made a connection with Melissa.
Tell us about it.
Both had a sort of like a Celtic knot. Florida. This is a loose end.
And was it for the same reason, Julie? Like, was your thinking the same, or did they represent different ideas?
It was sort of a little bit interrelated, but no, they represented different ideas.
And what were, I'm curious now, what were the ideas? So yours represented
Mine
what?
represented sort of like, I was thinking more like the environment, your home, your family, and your sort of like your learning journey being sort of like continuous.
And as an inquiry teacher, I think we're very conscious of that, aren't we? We're very conscious that the kids are operating in these connected worlds, and it's not just about the school learning, it's transferring it and using all those different environments. What did yours represent?
Movement and progression, and it's kind of all interconnected and continuous. And there's times when you overlap and go back to something that you, right, you cross a path that you were already on, but maybe you're off in a different direction this time.
Interesting, that idea of movement, direction, continuous, integrative, very different from a traditional model of teaching, which is often much more fragmented and linear. Yeah. Nice one. Yeah, similar shapes, different ideas. Yeah, not incompatible ideas though. No. Anyone find, maybe you made something completely different, but actually you were trying to represent the same sort of idea? Who else connected with someone in terms of their thinking? Or, other question, as someone shared their thinking with you, that you found that thinking really intriguing, and you share something that someone else did?
I really liked what Selena made. She was talking about the butterfly. Shall I say it? Yeah.
Go for it, Selena.
Okay, I made a butterfly because, well, first it's a caterpillar and then they have the cocoon, but if we help them to come out of the cocoon, they will never be a butterfly because they cannot fly. So we give all the information, which is the nature, but if we help them too much and we don't let them do it by themselves, they will never be able to.
Nice one. Yeah. And sometimes we're so tempted, aren't we? Like, oh, I'll just get you out of there yourself. I can see you're struggling, but it's that teach me how to do it for myself thing. Beautiful. Yeah. Okay. So our concept of what it means to be an inquiry teacher is about teaching in a way that there's flow, connection, integration, that they're teaching in a way that makes connections between the different worlds that kids operate in, teaching in a way that gives kids a sense of their own capacity, giving them responsibility. It's a really challenging thing, isn't it, to kind of clarify in our own thinking, what is it that makes something inquiry-based? What do inquiry teachers tend to do more of? And what do they tend to do a lot less of? There's a fairly furious agreement around the traps, as you would know, just in terms of the different researchers in inquiry. It's one area that there's not a lot of conflict around the essential elements of what makes something inquiry-based. So this is about as theoretical as we're going to get tonight. But I'm just going to give you this little table that I find useful. Just take a moment to look at it, where there's been an attempt to I've just tried to simplify this idea of what inquiry is, as opposed to what a more traditional or conservative approach to teaching is. So there may not be enough for everybody to share them. Is there one here? Back. You might just want to take a moment, and it may be that your symbol, just see if you can find something to connect with what you just made in that table. So on the right-hand side, where we're outlining, these are some of the elements that characterise inquiry. I wonder if that connects to what you just made. describe inquiry that's right there. Tell each other. What did you notice? So we've taken a moment just to inquire into ourselves. We've just connected across to, are we giving kids opportunities to do that? I've tuned into your thinking and helped you tune into your thinking about what it means to be an inquiry teacher. We're just now making connections between our own thinking and what some of the research says about what inquiry means. I thought I'd just quickly share with you too the strategy I just used with you with the pipe cleaners. A Year 5 teacher in Hong Kong used it earlier this year. She actually got the kids, they were in the midst of their exhibition, and she just gave them each a pipe cleaner and said, show me your learning so far. What's it been like for you so far? And they were able to actually describe, well, this is what it's been like for me so far. It was a very, very interesting way to use that idea. I just thought I'd show you that in action. You know as well as I do that the role of the teacher is very different now. That's why we use an inquiry-based approach. It's about helping kids develop the skills they need for lifelong learning, and I'm not going to go through all of those, you know them. But in order for us to do that, we need to teach in ways that really strengthen kids' capacity to inquire. So for the last part of this session, what I want to do is introduce you to what I'm calling the 9 practices of inquiry-based teachers. What is it that inquiry-based teachers actually do, regardless of the subject area or age group they are teaching? But rather than just tell you what those practices are, I'm going to try and involve you a little more in coming to understand them for yourself. I could crack open the cocoon and pull you out, but instead I'm going to get you to fight your way out of the cocoon yourselves. So I've given you at your tables some cards. There are different coloured ones. There should be enough for everybody around your table. There's a set of 4 for the back row there. You just make sure you have 1 each. They're on your table. Pass them around. Everyone got one? Awesome. Okay. So some of you have the same as the person next to you, some of you have different ones, that's fine. What you have in your hand is it's like just a little description, a summary of one of the 9 practices. And in fact, the practices are also just put up around the room. There's a practice of questioning, noticing, making connections, collaborating, releasing, cultivating curiosity, and keeping it real. So you've got one of those in your hand. Your job in a moment is going to be to teach someone else what you understand about the one that you've got. So read through it a few times. Try and make sense of it, and even think about an example, perhaps from your own teaching recently, or anything that you've done. You think, I think I'm doing that when I get to know that a bit, and then you're going to meet up with some people that have the same one as you, just to make sure you're on the same page, and you're going to teach someone who doesn't have that one all about it. So I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes reading and thinking time. So, find the people, they'll be near you, if not next to you, that have the same colour as you, and just have a couple of minutes together to see if you're on the same page about what it means. All right, so the orange people here, we're all really there's the
We have only
I just need to interrupt to give you the next step of the strategy. I'm just overhearing Nancy talk about if you want to learn something, if you want to remember something, teach it to someone else. Well, it just so happens that's what you're about to do. So we're going to do a kind of a adaptation of speed dating now, without necessarily the exchange of phone numbers, but then again, feel free, you know. So how it works is, in a moment, you're going to be on your feet, you're going to mill around the room, party style, you're going to find someone that has a different colour to the card that you've got, meet up with them, and you're going to have like a minute, 2 at the most, to teach them what you understand about that practice. They're going to do the same. I usually signal with music that it's time to move on, but I don't think the sound's going to do that, so I might do something really ordinary, like raise my hand to say it's time to stop that little teaching moment, and then you'll move to someone else and teach them. And as you do it, notice what's happening to your thinking about this practice as you teach someone else. So we'll get metacognitive while we're doing it. Okay, so once again, on your feet. And go find someone to teach you. Yeah. I'm giving you a copy of each one of them because I had to do that pretty quickly. Usually I'd like to do it like another 2 times, but I want to share some stuff with you as well. So I'll just give you a copy of each of the practices and some strategies associated with each one. I don't know that there's enough for everybody, but so the back group, see how this goes. There we go.
Are there any extras?
Any extras around the place? You got those ones as well?
Do you have extras? Oh, thank you.
I'll just check. Thanks, everyone. Are there any additional copies of just the summary of the practices, the grid?
I can make copies for
How many
anybody.
do we need? I was just on my way to the copier.
Either that, or if you just send me an email, I'll send you an electronic copy.
Yes.
Then you don't need to miss anything.
Okay, just out of interest, so the strategy we just used, which is the individual learning a little bit in depth about one piece and then teaching others and teaching others in turn, that in itself I would regard as a strategy that belonged in a more inquiry-based classroom. What are the benefits of using that strategy? I could have stood here and told you each of the 9 practices.
Accountability.
Yeah, tell me more.
Oh, so you make you have to be familiar with it yourself in order to be able to teach it to somebody else, and
Yeah.
the more you do recite it to somebody else or explain it, you become more familiar
Indeed.
yourself.
And usually, like, by the 3rd time is where I start to notice, if I do it 3 times, I start to notice that people are no longer looking at the card and it's just dangling by their side while they're explaining it in their own words. And oftentimes by the 3rd time, people need longer because they're building on things that others have said previously and they're getting better and better at it. So it's that lovely thing about, again, building agency, building a strong sense of what you can do. Yeah. And again, it's releasing me from the position of being the one, being the source of all the knowledge, and allowing the learner to do more of the heavy lifting, which is essentially what, as an inquiry teacher, you're trying to do more and more, is what can I do so that the locus of control moves away from me and towards the learner. I want the learners to be the ones that are doing the thinking. I don't want to be doing the thinking for them. My thinking all happens prior to that, yeah? It's like, how do I set this up so that I'm scaffolding and supporting the learner but still enabling them to have some independence and freedom. I want to just show you, we won't have a lot of time, but I'm just going to show you some examples of each of those practices in action in various contexts, just to add further to the examples that you shared with each other. So the cultivation of curiosity, probably one of the most commonly used techniques in an inquiry school, is the provocation. And this is a classic provocation. So this is actually the provocation I think it's about year 1 or 2, I'm trying to remember now. The teachers are beginning an inquiry into inference. So when you're reading, learning how to infer as you are reading. So it's one of the key comprehension skills, right? To infer. So they've set up a scene in the classroom and they're just basically saying to the kids what's happened. You know, so there's all these clues about what could have happened. It's a little difficult for you to see, but it's like someone has stayed there overnight. Someone slept in the classroom overnight. So the idea is, what do you think happened and what did you notice about your thinking? It's such a beautiful way to provoke the kids thinking about inference and looking for clues, which is exactly what the teachers want them to start to learn to do as readers. What a beautiful way to provoke curiosity, yeah? They did a few, actually. They had them in different classrooms. They were just gorgeous. They got me curious. Curiosity, the research that Susan Engelman and others have done also says, without a doubt, kids that are most curious are in classrooms where teachers show, deliberately and outwardly show, that they are curious. So it's infectious. Curiosity is catching. So this is actually in the same school. It's a beautiful school in Australia that I'm lucky enough to work in. And this is with the 3 and 4 year olds in their preschool. And this teacher had just brought in from home just a sample of compost that she'd had from her worm farm. And this is a digiscope that she's got here. And of course it was full of creepy crawlies. So she just set it up. This is during their play-based time. And she just said to them, I brought something really interesting that I noticed at home, and I'm just going to be using the digiscope here, and if you want to come and have a look, but I can't stop looking at that. Isn't that interesting? So she's just there, and of course the kids are going, well, she's saying, wow, look at that one. So just beautiful, and the kids just gradually moving in, and all she's doing is modelling the questions that are coming into her head, modelling her excitement about it. She's cultivating curiosity. And of course, images are powerful ways, yeah, to come. Doesn't that just make you curious straight away? It's one of the National Geographic photos of the year 2 years ago. Perfect for a see, think, wonder, isn't it? You know that routine? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great way to cultivate curiosity. I did a see, think, wonder with some children in New Zealand with this image, and when I got to the wondering, these are some of their wonderings. I'm scribbling them down, you know. It's gorgeous, isn't it? This was gorgeous. This one said, is it comfortable? And one of the kids said, yeah, it's really comfortable. I lie on my dog and it's really comfortable. It's beautiful. Just the technique of having up on your interactive whiteboard or your Apple TV on your screen in the morning a really powerful, extraordinary photo. Just get onto the websites like One Big Photo or National Geographic or whatever. Just having that as kids come into the room. Doesn't have to be connected to your unit. It might be, it might not be. And sometimes you might do a more formal see, think, wonder, or it might just be kids gathering, looking at it, talking, wondering, and just saying to them, wow, when I look at that, I just remember. In fact, the question that most kids ask straight up with this one is, where's her mum and dad? We could have all sorts of theories about that, but we're not going to go there. So, curiosity is also something that our early years teachers do such a beautiful job of generally is curating the space so that there are invitations to explore. Jessica and I have been talking a bit about the idea of the maker space and the use of this space here as a place that can invite curiosity. Some of the artworks that are displayed got me curious today. I'm looking at those. There's more evidence around the school in general than when I was here last, of installations and objects and interesting things that make you want to stop and wonder. Keep that up. This is a long story. I'm going to do really quickly. It was just such a great provocation. In our curriculum at home at grade 4, there's an expectation that the children will learn about first contacts between non-Indigenous people, explorers, and Indigenous Australians. And we were thinking about what the concept was sitting behind that idea when we were planning this inquiry, and we were talking about collision of cultures and that basically what happens when people meet something that is unlike, that they've never seen before, and the fear that can happen, which is kind of what did happen in our history. So we're thinking, how can we provoke the kids to think about confronting the unfamiliar? Because that's so much part of the story of what happened through exploration. So this teacher did this very creative idea. She said to the kids the day before, hey, don't have much breakfast tomorrow because we're going to have breakfast at school. And she made purple porridge. She just coloured it with blueberries. Right? It's actually really delicious, but it looked awful. And so the kids are all excited. She said, yeah, so there's breakfast inside waiting on the tables. And the kids all come in and go, crying, some crying. So it was a true provocation. You know, you had some kids going, I'm going to try it, and some kids going, I don't eat that, and some kids just bursting into tears. And they debriefed all of that. So what was lovely about this is this powerful moment that just got all these questions like, wow, why is it that when we see something or experience something that we've never seen or experienced before, why do we react the way we react? And it meant she could keep going back to that moment as they started to explore some of the stories associated with first contacts in Australia. Great way. Installations, all of that. So the curiosity pieces also demonstrated beautifully when we value the questions that children ask. So some of us have been talking about wonderings, getting kids' wonderings up in the space. Kids won't be curious if they don't think that we're interested in their questions. Speaking of which, some of you had question as the practice, that's teacher questioning, harnessing children's questions, using questions to drive the learning. This is in a preschool again, and in fact, who did I talk today about this technique of putting the children's photos up, and then whenever if they're asking interesting questions, just to display those, and they can also, that's right, we were talking about it, weren't we? And that can maybe feed into what you put in the space for play around some of their interests. I'm not going to go through all of these. This is actually for writing, so these are little wonder boxes that Michelle has in her Year 2 classroom, and the children put their wonderings about anything in these little boxes, and that can be a seed for writing and they also use them for oral language, for inquiry talks with each other. This is just a different way of honouring and displaying the children's questions. These are just little Perspex photo frames, and the children had come up with their wonderings the day before, and Michelle just displayed them, had them on the tables, and the kids were writing their first thinking, their theories about those wonderings. Let's skip through some of these. Hello. Oh, here we go. I wanted to just Oh, there we go, that was moving along. This is the assets one. I just want to spend a moment on this one. I'm not going to go through all of them. But this is something that I've spoken about with several of you, and also something I tried to model in the Year 2 lesson today. And this is this idea of growing learning capacity and the different techniques that you can use to do this. This is our real metacognitive practice here. This is a technique that we've used to build learning assets really effectively. Many of you will have done this. In fact, I've forgotten your name, PE teacher. Sorry.
Tomas.
That's right, Tomas. You were talking about using the iPads today and the kids giving each other feedback. And this is similar, but it's in the generalist classroom. So we were focusing on working together as a team. The children were doing some teamwork. The teachers were filming them and then inviting the children to self-assess. So how do you think you went as a team? And often they'd say, yeah, really good. Yeah. How do you know? Oh, we took turns. We, we encouraged each other. So they'd reel off all the things on the anchor chart, and then they'd say, okay, well, let's actually take a look here. So you said you took turns, yeah? So let's have a look. How do you think? So this lovely idea of getting your kids to really notice themselves a little more. That was a really great technique to build learning assets and get kids goal setting and reflecting more accurately. This is a different thing. This is kids planning their learning intentions actually prior to their play-based sessions. So their discovery times, about halfway through the year, they started to do these little personal intentions where they'd say, right, in my discovery time today, I'm going to keep working on my AFL project, because that's what this kid was doing, which is Australian Football League, and he'd been researching all the different footballers. These are 5-year-olds. But while I'm doing that, I'm going to focus on being a good self-manager. And so during the session, the teacher would be not just talking with the children about what they were learning about, but also how they were going with their personal goal that they'd set just for that session. Building learning assets, or building the learning to learn piece, should be part of what we're seeing on the walls. That the walls speak of what we value. So learning, inquiring into what it means to be a good self-manager, what it means to be a great researcher. I modelled this technique in the Year 2 classroom today, which is borrowing from Guy Claxton. Some of you will know his work, this idea of the split screen learning intention. So we know that when kids know why they're doing what they're doing, when they're clear about intentions, they do a better job of it. So we should be able to walk into our classroom and say, so any classroom and say, so what is it you're learning about today? And they should be able to tell us not just what's the activity, but what's the learning. So making their learning intention explicit. So this was part of a unit of inquiry in how we organise ourselves. The children had been to the library to look at the roles of people in the library. This is in the local library. So in this lesson, the intention was we're going to find out more about how the people in the library are connected to each other. But while we're doing that, we're also going to be focusing on being great thinkers. And we're going to look at how we can show our thinking with a concept map. So this intention is more the building their learning muscles intention. This one is the content, this one is the process. Does that make sense? I think today in the Year 2 classroom, this side was about enriching their small moments writing, but this side was about listening skills. So most of the sessions that I run, I'll do something like this. Invite the children to be aware that they're not just learning about math, or they're not just learning about swimming, or they're not just learning, they're also growing their learning muscles. And this is the side that can be transferred to everything else. Just take a moment right now. This is a really important technique as an inquiry teacher. take a moment, think back to a lesson that you did today, and if you were to go back in time to that lesson and set the learning intention, what's one transdisciplinary skill that you might be able to say to the kids they were strengthening during that lesson? Just do it retrospectively, or think ahead to one tomorrow maybe. If you were to do a split screen learning intention, what might it look like? Just share with each other. Just take a moment to play with that idea. So if I can just pause that conversation there, one of the things we've just been chatting about here is how much more powerful, this is just another example, this is from a Year 1 class where we're looking at water safety here, but the thinking skill the children were having to use in that lesson was the skill of justifying, right? So take the content away, and I want my kids to know that they haven't just learnt about how to be safe in the water, they've also learnt a bit more about thinking. And that is actually the piece that is going to serve them well across the curriculum. One of the things I've been speaking about with the specialists, the single subject teachers over the last couple of days, is how powerful it would be if they were having conversations with generalist teachers about the transdisciplinary skills that you were targeting in the units, for example, and then that allows the potential, if it suits their program, for the specialist teachers to echo or reinforce those same skills in the context of whatever they're working on in their programs. The transdisciplinary skills often allow much, much stronger and more powerful integration than the content. There's no point saying to a specialist teacher, oh, can you get the kids to do this in music or this in art, if there isn't a lot of potential for that task to really deepen the children's understanding in music or art. Better, most of the time, for it to be connected just through the concepts and all the TD skills. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And it's so lovely if you hear the kids saying things like, oh yeah, we know what that means, or we've been practicing that, we did that in math, and now we're doing it in music. And how about that, now we're doing it again in PE. We've been learning, I know that in PE, some of the children have been giving feedback to each other, which is a communication skill. Imagine if the generalist classroom teacher was also working on, hey, in our writing workshop, we're practicing giving each other feedback. I know you've been doing it over there, let's build that muscle and practice it over here. So it's a really powerful technique. It helps with metacognition, and it becomes its own little inquiry. How do you give feedback? How do you move around a space, making sure that you are thinking about others while you do? How do you explain your thinking clearly so someone else understands? This is not meant to be a moment of self-promotion, but it'll come across that way. But in my latest book, which you have a couple of copies of now in the library, I was showing this to a couple of you today. I have had a go at, and I can't find it, but somewhere in this book is a fairly detailed list of specific skills. There we go. So I use these sometimes directly with older kids or just in my planning. Whoops, I'll get that in a sec. So these are very similar to the transdisciplinary skills in the PYP. They're in lots of different curricula around the world, those same 5 areas. So collaboration or social skills, self-management, communication, thinking and research. And what we've attempted to do here is really unpack for younger children what are some of the things that we expect them to be able to do. For older children, what can we add to that? So even just being able to pull some of these out at lesson level or at unit planning level, make them explicit to the children so they know that that's what they're learning to do. We can know they're using the skills, but if they don't know they're using the skills, they're not learning it. Does that make sense? Yeah. So anyway, you might find that useful if you want to have a go at this technique, which Guy Claxton called flipped screen learning intentions. I am just going to show you a couple more examples. This is the big one. This is the hard one. It's the letting go one. So it's releasing, and I cannot resist sharing this beautiful quote with you. This is from Matt Glover's book that he edited. It came out last year. Have any of you seen it? The Teacher You Want to Be. You know Matt Glover? Oh, okay. So one of the world's greatest literacy educators. His writing about writing is absolutely wonderful. So that's one to look at. But this is a collection of essays by some of the best literacy educators around the world. Isn't it a great title? The Teacher You Want to Be. Got me picking it up off the shelf. I'm not going to read this whole thing to you, but I love where he says, when you figure something out for yourself, there is a certain thrill in the figuring. After a few successful experiences, you start to think that figuring out is something you can actually do. Being told explicitly what to do, how to do it, over and over again, gives you a different set of feelings about yourself. The interpretation might be that you're the kind of person who can't figure things out for yourself. In an inquiry classroom, we want kids to see themselves as figuring out kind of people, yeah? And if we don't release responsibility to them, they may just see themselves as more dependent and as people that can't really figure things out for themselves, because that's what the teacher does. That's why inquiry is so powerful. It helps kids believe that they are figuring out kind of people. So this is such a simple example. A couple of weeks ago I was in Jakarta at the international school I work in there. We have a I-time program there, discovery time in the early years, I-time with the older children. Every week they have an extended session where they pursue their own passions and interests. We were starting up for the year, so this is in like the second week of school, first week of school there, and the teachers could have told the kids, here are the rules, here's how I-time works, this is what we're going to do. But of course, instead, they invite the children. They release responsibility. How are we going to make this work? What are the rules? So this is the first initial brainstorm that they're using the flat chat routine here to co-construct those rules. So it might be co-constructing something like this, releasing responsibility for co-constructing criteria for assessment. However we do it, it's about releasing responsibility. The children here are very earnestly researching what they're noticing about the construction that's happening just outside the school. The teacher's given them the responsibility. Go see what you can figure out about what's happening out there. This is a different thing. This is releasing yourself from what you thought you were going to do. You know that one? You probably all did it at some point today. And I think an inquiry teacher learns how to know when there's a teachable moment and to go with it and say, you know what, instead of that, we're going to do this. And this beautiful collection of stories actually happened out of a series of items going missing from children's bags. And long story short, the teacher ended up using that, because they were about, we need to think about why those objects that have gone missing might be so special to the people that own them. So a story of things that people love. So it was all about why do we treasure the things we treasure, or because there was a thief in the ranks. Interestingly, after this, things stopped going missing. Keeping it real. Oh, I do love that meme. You seen that one? Yeah, me too. In an inquiry classroom, this is a little bit about release too, going with the teachable moment. So this this is beautiful. This school's just doing such incredible things. And outside the classroom here, there's a new playground being built. So the children, the inquiry is about that. That's what they're inquiring into. They've got questions, they're observing, they're going out, they're talking to the people that are actually the workers that are creating the playground, recording their observations, looking at the materials. It wasn't the unit they planned to do, but it still connects up with the big ideas that govern their year, so they're able to back map it to the curriculum. Of course, the garden spaces in the school are perfect opportunities for authentic and very muddy inquiry. This was an inquiry into well-being and relationships that was very much connected to the need for the kids to work on their behaviour in the playground. Some of you had noticing. I might finish with this one actually, because what I've done is just pull out some images that are about noticing and naming and documenting. And this is something else that many of us have spoken about over my 2 days here, is we know that it really does help the learning if those journeys of learning are made explicit to the children. So this was a jelly bean inquiry. It reminded me a little of your the giant, what do you call it, courgette zucchini, that I notice is coming to your office now. So when's the weighing happening?
Student council is deciding which class is going to weigh it and to count tomorrow.
Awesome. And will they decide how it's going to be weighed?
So
There's such a great inquiry in that. Now that process from harvesting to wondering to estimating to deciding to weighing would be such a beautiful inquiry story to tell, to document. I haven't just given you a whole lot of work there, Elizabeth, or the class, whoever, you know. But if you've got photos of the journey, unpacking that and making it. So this jelly bean inquiry, simple enough, we've all done them, but I was able to walk along this corridor in the school and read the whole process, the story of that inquiry, where it started, what the kids' estimations were. So we've got here, then we started to realise some of these strategies weren't very good. This is a math inquiry. It's fascinating and beautiful to read. It helps the kids notice the process. It helps the parents notice the process. So whether it's in an inquiry diary, whether it's on the walls, however you do it, really documenting the process and using the language of inquiry as you do. And of course, noticing is also about the teachers stepping back to notice what's happening. The grade 2 teachers are doing a beautiful job of this in our lesson today. What are we noticing about what's going on here? And then being able to adapt the teaching according to the information that you're gathering. Stephanie's wonderful at this. Whenever I go into her room, I so often see her. She's set the kids up doing stuff and then she's listening, she's watching, she's note-taking, and then oftentimes moving straight in to do some instruction based on the data that she's just gathered. So it's that assessing and teaching in real time that a great inquiry teacher does so well. And then finally, we want our kids to notice their own growth. So this is just that beautiful thinking routine I used to think, but now I think. And what helped me get there? What did I do that changed my thinking? When we get kids to notice their processes, they get better at planning new journeys of inquiry. Now, I haven't gone through all of the practices. I've gone through maybe 4 or 5 of them there. But even with the ones that I have shared, take a moment to have a look at the overview of them. And just off the top of your heads, before we leave, I wonder if there is one of those practices that's standing out for you already that you're thinking, that one, I would really like to amplify that in my work. That's something I'd like to do more of. just maybe share with each other what your gut instinct is as you go through. On the other handout are some strategies that support each one. So when you have time, take a look at them, and again, you might just choose one to amplify. See if you can amplify one in your work tomorrow. We'll leave you there with some food for thought. Thank you, team. And I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.